Hi guys, Thom Hunt here, and today's video is going to be all about the brand new Westin Escape Cam. Now this has just hit the shelves of the shops, it's just in stock. There's been a lot of serious marketing and chat about this recently, and I've been using it now on and off probably about 6 months. So today's video is going to be all about the tips and tricks of how to rig it, what situations to use it in, what braid, rod setup, and just a little bit about how to get the best out of this, because you'll probably see a lot of what I call the hero shot, you know, a pike coming up and smashing a bait, a dorado, a mahi-mahi, like all of those really cool sort of short clips. But really, the magic of this is turning you into a better angler. This is an educational tool. I've used this now and I've discovered various things about fish behavior, about underwater topography, of places that I thought I knew pretty well. And actually, it's turned into a whole nother world of information and learning for me. So that's really what I want to get across today. And I'm going to take you through, you know, a few of the pitfalls that I fell into, a few things that I got wrong as well as I got right, and just how to get the best out of this. There's plenty of videos on there to show you how to rig the tube into it and how to put the SD card in and that sort of stuff. I'm not going to cover that today. I'm going to cover more about getting the best out of this rather than exactly how to sort of turn it on and use it. All right. So let's start with a few recommendations on the kit, right? The rod, the reel, the braid, that type of stuff. This is the world's smallest and lightest camera. So there's been quite a few different underwater cameras on the market in the past. However, they've been big, bulky, heavy, and unless you're casting on like a pretty big pike rod, really heavy pike rod, they've only really been sort of useful for trolling. Now this comes in at 40 grams. So one of my first recommendations is we can use this bank fishing because it's castable. We can use this in perch fishing situations, zander fishing situations. It's been very pike heavy. A lot of this underwater camera stuff has been pike heavy in the past, and this opens up new worlds for us to get underwater footage. The lightest possible rod that I'd kind of recommend is kind of 50 to 60 grams, which might be a little bit heavy for your perch fishing ordinarily, but we're now going to get footage like we've never seen before. So if you normally use a rod that might be sort of 20 or 30 grams maybe for your fishing, for your perch fishing, I mean, it is worth stepping up a little bit more into something that might not be absolutely perfect for perch, but will get us understandings of perch and how they relate to the lures and your perch fishing areas like you've never seen before. All right, so that's my first tip. You can cast this on a lighter style rod, and I've used it down to like sort of 5 centimeter shad tees slim, tiny little baits to try and get reactions and see footage of small pike and small perch, and it's been really fascinating. All right, so that's the first thing. However, having said that, I have this rigged up most of the time on this rod. Now this is a power cast, so technically I guess a pike rod. It's 8'3", it's a spinning version, and it throws up to 130 grams. Now, what I've found with the Westin Escape Cam is having it fully rigged up on a rod the whole time makes life so much easier. All right. What I've found is when I first got it, I thought to myself, I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to take it in the box. And if I think I might use it, I then might try it on and then rig it together, that type of stuff. What I found was, so just being honest, in a real world situation, I found I would turn up, I'd go bank fishing or boat fishing, and I'd think to myself, oh, I'm going to try and find the fish. I'm going to try and get a couple of bites first. So I'm just going to go out with my normal rods, reels, lures and whatever, and just try and get a few. What I found was I sort of fell into to the trap of getting a little bit too excited about the fishing. And even then when I was catching, I thought, I don't really want to stop. I don't really want to then go through the rigmarole of like rigging it all together, which takes a few minutes. I just wanted to focus on my fishing. What I then found was if I just had this fully rigged on a rod the whole time, and I took the rod with me and it's just ready to use, even if I was perch fishing, even on this rod, I can kind of take it down to, I mean, I've got 12 centimetre on there. I could take it down to a 9 centimetre. Catching a perch might not be ideal, but just having the setup ready to go and being able to cast this into a swim. So I might take my perch rod with me, have this with me. I might catch a couple. I might think, oh, I want to go and have a look at the shoal, or I want to see what type of weed or how much light is getting in down there. How are they reacting to the different lures? So it's not necessarily like, oh, if I go perch fishing, I've got to use this on a perch setup. I'm now comfortable using this setup just to get some great footage and really, like I said, use it as a tool to learn so much more about the swim when I really want to. So that is one of my main tips. Have a dedicated rod. Bit like if you're a carp angler and you've got like a spod rod, you have it as a dedicated spod rod. You don't necessarily use your fishing rod and then tie your spod on the whole time. You have a dedicated spod rod. In match fishing, feeder fishing, you've got a separate pole section for your feeding cup, or you've got a separate feeder made with a big feeder just for your feeding. Have a dedicated setup, you know, in all the different realms. This is the Predator version of that. Have yourself a Westin Escape Cam made up on a permanent rod and take it with you. Don't try and do the chopping and changing, because I just find, unless you're way more disciplined than me, which you might be, that you just end up, it stays in the box more than actually getting used. All right, so if it's ready to go, you can cast it whenever you want to. Absolutely brilliant. That's my first tip. Second tip is, so just going back to the rods slightly, we do a lot of rods in that kind of 7'3", like the hybrid cast, could easily cast this, 7'9", some of our power casts, that type of thing. I tend to go, so this is 8'3", and I've also used it on some rods that are 8'6". That is brilliant. Basically, when you've got a length of line, and I'll come onto it in a second, and by the way, don't worry about dropping it, super durable. But yeah, like I said, I'll come on to this in a second because there's some specific tips I've got on the distance between the camera and the lure. But when you've got a slightly longer rod, because you're going to have, this weighs a little bit, then your lure's going to weigh a little bit, you end up with a slight pendulum action, and just a little bit of the extra length gives you enough room to cast both of these at the same time in a really smooth, really efficient manner. All right, so look for a rod that's kind of 8 foot or maybe a touch more is a really, really good casting length. It just gives you so much more control. Coming on to the braid, definite recommendation. So even if I am going to put a perch lure onto this, I'm going to go like 55 pound or upwards. So 0.3 plus, 0.35 plus. We're going to spend money on this. It's a tool that you want to keep. You don't want to cast it up into a tree. You don't want to crack it off. You don't want to lose it in a snag. So go heavy, go durable, okay? You want to look after this and you want to get it back. So go heavy on your braid, and then obviously if this ever gets stuck in the rocks, in the weed, in the timber, make sure that the bit in between is going to be of a less braking strain. If you do have to pull for a brake, then you're going to get your camera back. That is of utmost importance. Yeah, we don't want to be leaving that in the environment, and worse than anything, you don't want to be losing it, because they're not the cheapest, they're electronics, and we want to get them back and keep using them for years to come. All right, so go heavy on your braid. I use it on a fixed spool, as you'll see, like that's a 4000 size, casts like an absolute dream. I'm just really happy with that. Again, like I said, there's weight in this, there can be weight in your lure, it pendulums a little bit, and I just find having no resistance, opening that bail arm allows for a much smoother cast, and I can still feather it nicely. However, if you're a bait caster, kind of guy. I'm a fixed ball guy. If you're a bait caster guy and it casts really well on that, let me know in the comments below. You do you. So these are just my recommendations, but that is what I found and what I use. Coming down onto the actual business end of the camera now. This is the pack that it comes in, and there's loads of accessories. There's a dive vane, there's a few other bits and bobs that I'll come to in a second. And like I said, there's tubes that come in there, there's spare O-rings, there's swivels and clips. I'm not going to take you through necessarily how I rig it up directly because there's other videos out there. However, in terms of first world experience, like actual experience on the bank, I do have a couple of recommendations from my style of fishing. Might not suit you, but this is what I've learned. The dive vane is pretty good, and I think particularly good when you're trolling as well. Especially if you want to get the speed up, it keeps the camera down. Because it's so lightweight, we obviously trimmed a lot of the weight out of it, and especially with the thick braid like I just mentioned, there is a tendency for it to be quite shallow sometimes. Alright, so if you are trolling, unless you're trolling at super slow speeds, that's the type of situation that I would recommend the dive vane, because it just keeps the camera down rather than coming right up to the surface. However, for casting, I have tried it a little bit. I didn't really feel like it was any more beneficial when I was casting. But again, there's loads of different scenarios out there, and I haven't used it a huge amount in casting applications from the bank. So maybe there's more to be learnt on that. But yeah, certainly with trolling, I found that to be useful. What I have found to be super useful is this Y vane, all right? So it's called a Y stabilization fin, and it clips on and clips off really easy. So you can use it, clip it on, clip it off really easy. However, like I said to you, with a dedicated setup, this is the one thing that I've found that I actually keep on all the time. It was originally designed if you're using super aggressive lures. So if you're using a Westin swim, which has obviously got side-to-side action, it stabilizes it. If you've got a very aggressive crankbait, like a platypus or high-speed kind of trolling, something like that, it really stabilizes it. Even big paddle tails can often give quite a wobble in the camera. This stabilization fin really works an absolute treat. However, I keep it on the whole time, and I keep it on for two reasons. The first one being, it allows me to then not have to clip things on, clip things off. Where is it? Is this in my pocket? Oh, I left that in the car. I just keep it like this the whole time, all right? And then it doesn't matter whether I'm using a small lure that's quite subtle or whether I'm using a super aggressive lure. I've got a stable, steady shot the whole time. And also, this little weight here, it's only a few grams, but I found it makes a fantastic difference to just being able to control the camera when you're casting from the bank or the boat. The Escape Cam does ever so slightly sink very slowly, but like I said, with thick braid, if you haven't got that tiny little bit of extra weight on, it's literally only a few extra grams, but if you haven't got that on, it's perfect for fishing nice and subtle in that top kind of like 1 to 2 meters or so, all right? But it sinks so slowly and your braid is so thick, if you're going to go for a heavy one because you want to get it back if you get it snagged, then it's going to have that tendency to ride up nice and shallow. Now, if that's the situation you're in, you can go for it. What I've found is I can still fish really shallow. I can fish over the top of weeds if I'm just casting and starting my retrieve fairly quickly, or I can fish this down to like 10, 12 meters. I've had some fantastic footage of bream, and you'll be amazed at the zander that swim in and amongst the bream shoals. I've had it in 30 to 40 foot, so 10 to 12 plus meters, and it just gets down there. That little bit of added weight just makes it sink at the right rate so that it's not super heavy and dropping to the bottom like a stone, but it sits nicely on the retrieve. You get great visuals on your lure still. It's not sitting too heavy. It keels everything perfectly. And for me, this gives me the option of fishing anywhere between 1 and 10, 12 meters deep. All right, so I keep it on there the whole time. That is a really, really good bit of kit. In terms of distance, I wouldn't go shorter than about 18 inches and try not to go longer than like 4 foot, so a meter 20. It just gets slightly too long, and then your cast becomes quite tricky. Visuals if you've got clear enough water, you're still going to see your lure absolutely fine, but I find the happy medium is like 2.5 foot, which is about 70 centimeters. All right, I found that absolutely perfect. I don't think that the fish get too worried about this being close to the lure, and I get fantastic visuals of the bait and of the strikes and everything else, and castability wise is just perfect. So keep it to a sort of a meter-ish or less. Maybe there's some specific applications for longer ones, you know, when we're using things like buoyant lures or Carolinas, or, you know, there's a lot of testing to be done out there. But again, you're going to have to balance that kind of like castability with tangle ability, with fishing ability, with being able to see the lure, all that sort of stuff. So my main recommendation, start at about 70 odd centimeters and just go from there. Always make sure that this trace, whether it's fluorocarbon, I've got wire on here because I've done a bit of pike fishing recently, is less than your braid. So if you keep your braid at 55 pound, I keep this at about 25 to 30 pound wire. All right, I want the wire to go first. If that gets snagged, I can come home with my camera. All right, really, really important. And then moving on to one of the final bits, this little gadget, all right, which is the end cap, makes taking this end cap on and off super easy. All right, so you can twist it on and off. Again, like I said, there's a bunch of videos on there that tell you the light sequences, how to put the SD card in, how to charge it, that type of stuff. I'm talking today about real world fishing scenarios, all right, and where I found the benefits. So that tool's absolutely fantastic. And then moving on to what I think is, so the two main benefits to this over any other underwater camera, the castability aspect. Lightest, smallest camera in the world, fishing cameras, brilliant. And this gadget here, all right. There's actually two. It comes with two in the box. One of them is USB-C, which I think, I'm not an Android guy, but I think that's right for Android. That certainly works on my Mac and probably some other laptops as well, where you can plug straight in. I'm an iPhone guy, so it comes with, I think that's called a Lightning, if I remember correctly, but that plugs straight in to your iPhone. So it's literally as simple as turning it on, having a look, make sure the flashing light sequence is working and it's on and recording. Great. Cast out a few times. Like I said, not always about the hero shot. You can drop it all the way to the bottom. You can see how fish are reacting. You can see what fish are down there. More importantly, you can see what the topography is made of. You can see gravel banks when you come over them. I've got amazing footage of mussel beds that I never even knew were there. I can see different styles of weed. You'd be absolutely amazed. When I'm fishing on a boat, I've used it on the Mega Live before. Looks like weed, weed, weed. Looks like all the same weed to me. I cast the Escape Cam over a few times. There's different weed. The fish relate, the perch love to sit in specific types of weed. I did not know that. I've learnt that. Like, this is the most amazing learning tool, guys. Honestly, it's just absolutely fantastic. So, like I said, keep it rigged up the whole time. Take it out with you the whole time, even if it's only worth a few casts, because you're just interested in what you think the bottom is made up of. It's then super useful and worth its weight in gold. All right, but it's as simple as that. You cast it out a few times. You then want to see that stuff in real time or just after real time. You take the cap off, dip, dip, comes out, you click it out, you stick it into the bottom of there, goes into your camera, and it's a doddle. You can then watch it on your phone straight away. It's absolutely awesome. That lightest, smallest, castable, and being able to see the footage on your phone while you're on the bank. Honestly, guys, that is taking underwater to the next level. We've seen all of the carp footage. A lot of the match fishing guys are now looking at their method feeders. They've got underwater footage as well. This is our predator version of underwater footage, and it's going to take our learning to the next level. It definitely has with me. So yeah, last other tip as well. You'll see here I've got a Shad T Slim 12 centimeters on. I've got it on a 5 gram jig head. Typically I don't go above 10 grams. Reason being is if you've got a particularly heavy lure, as this comes back, you might end up with that lure sitting, and it'll sit right at the bottom of the screen when you're watching it, right at the bottom of the visuals. So to keep it a little bit more in that, you want it in that sort of bottom third. Keep the jig head fairly light, all right? I've seen loads of guys got great footage with sea trout on lures that are diving around. I've seen some fantastic blue water stuff with mahi and dorados and tuna. There's amazing applications for pike, perch, underwater features, everything like that. It's a brilliant all-rounder, this camera. So yeah, there you go, guys. There's some first world real life tips on how to use the Westin Escape Cam. I've been loving it the last few months. Like I said, not every situation is useful. I've got some great hero shots out of it. I feel like the longevity of this type of thing is just opening our eyes to the underwater world. We've got sonars, we've got live sonars. This is the live sonar, all right? So you can see it with your own eyes. It's not just an image on a screen that's 2D and pixelated and you can't quite figure out what it is, what type of fish it is. You get to see them and you get to know, all right? So it's just brilliant. Yeah, so there we go, guys. Few tips on the Westin Escape Cam. Hope you've enjoyed that. It's just hit the shops, so if you've got one, let me know in the comments below. Like, do you like it? Do you like the first impressions of it, the looks of it? What scenarios do you think you'll use it in? Will it be saltwater, freshwater, maybe what species? Because I think there's a mega conversation to be had now with cameras like this, giving us an insight to like the next level. So there we go, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Thom Hunt in the kit room. I'll see you on the next one.